Welcome and thank you for joining us for our weekly object talk. My name is Eliana and I'm a member of the learning team at the Jewish Museum. Today you're joining us for an object talk connected to the theme of light, which is our theme for the month. This week I'll be exploring a Ner Tamid, an everlasting light from our collection. This object is part of the Jewish Museum's designated collection of over 40,000 objects that show the diversity of Jewish life and history, and our programs exist to explore the connections between faiths and cultures. Now I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at the object in question. If we look closely at the object, we will see a silver hanging lamp shaped to represent Jerusalem, with an amethyst in the middle representing the light. This object is 500 millimeters high and 120 millimeters in diameter. It's one of the newer objects in our collection, dating back to 2004, although now that does seem quite a long time ago. It was the year I started secondary school. It is currently displayed in our Judaism gallery next to our 17th century ark, which originates in northern Italy. We acquired this object in 2008 with the help of Art Fund and the MLA and V&A from silversmith Daniel Lehrer. Lehrer's lamp design was created for the 2004 Spertus Judaica Prize competition in Chicago, where he was a finalist. This object is what we call a Ner Tamid in Hebrew. In English, this means everlasting light or eternal flame. This object would traditionally hang above the Ark or Aron Kodesh in a synagogue, and every synagogue will have one of these objects. Its name comes from a verse from Exodus in the Torah, where we read that an eternal flame was to burn on the golden menorah in the holy temple at all times. The iconic candelabra, the menorah, in which its name has the Hebrew word for light within it, or, is one of the earliest symbols of Judaism. The Ner Tamid has come to remind us of the eternal light of the menorah, and has also been associated with the representation of continuously burning incense altar which stood in front of the ark in the temple. The Jewish sages interpreted the Ner Tamid as a symbol of God's eternal and immanent presence in our communities and our lives. The original oil-fueled Ner Tamids have now evolved to adopt modern energy sources, with their light source often coming from light bulbs. Still evolving to this day, now some use solar power, which can remind communities of their connection to the natural world created by God and therefore his everlasting presence. What is interesting in the case of this object is that the artist Daniel Lehrer chose to use the light of a lamp reflected through and onto an amethyst. He was inspired by the story of the burning bush in the Bible, which is connected to God's revelation to Moses, and it is stated that the bush burnt with fire and it was not consumed. The use of the stone, the amethyst, for Lehrer emphasizes a feeling of permanence implied by the word tamid, everlasting. The artist's specific choice of amethyst as the stone to represent God's presence is based on a comment by Ibn Ezra, a leading Bible commentator, who connected the Hebrew word for amethyst to the word for dream. For the artist, there is a dreamlike quality to the idea of the light of God resting in the midst of Jerusalem. The amethyst is surrounded by a panoramic view of Jerusalem, symbolizing the spiritual light which emanated from the Holy Temple. An amethyst is also one of the stones that featured on the breastplate of the high priest in biblical times. The design of this object is a modern and a meaningful piece of ceremonial art, and it shows the continuity and relevance of a timeless, symbolic, and holy object. It seems quite extraordinary to me that these objects of symbolic importance continue to be just that, evolving with the changing times to reflect new technology, but always staying true to its original symbolism. Now, thank you so much for joining me today. Do join us next week for another object talk on an object from our collection.